What's up everyone, this is another video on, I suppose, why your previous approach isn't necessarily working for you anymore and why you probably have hit a plateau in terms of your results. So one thing you have to know before we get into it is that the body is very adaptable, and if you're always doing the same thing, eventually your body is going to fully adapt to that and the results are going to stop coming as a result of that. So take it just as an example before we get into the slides. If you start out in the gym and let's say, for example, you were doing only one exercise, so let's say you were doing a bench press 40 kg for maybe 10 reps. And for the first few weeks, I'm sure you will see a little bit of growth in your muscles from that, but eventually your body is going to adapt to that stimulus, and then you're not going to see any results downstream from that. You're just going to kind of maintain it. So you always need to look for that improvement in order for them results to keep coming. So I just wanted to start out with what a plateau basically is. So in the context of the gym and fitness as a whole, you're always going to hit one eventually. So you hit some sort of a bump in the road, it slows down your progress, or maybe it stops your progress altogether for a certain amount of time. And again, it's not that you're doing anything wrong, because plateaus are inevitable. And it will take a good while to break through a plateau, even if you're doing all the right things, but there certainly is ways that you can work around it and try your best to break through it. As I was saying in the intro, if you're doing the same thing for long enough, your body's just going to get used to it, it's going to adapt to it, and you're not going to see the results anymore. A plateau in the context of fat loss, it means your body has adjusted to the calorie deficit that you put yourself in, and it means technically you're not in a deficit anymore because your metabolism is just adjusted to you being on lower calories. Because if your body is in a calorie deficit, you're always going to be losing weight. But the thing is, if you're in a slight deficit, you will lose weight initially, but then when you've lost a little bit of weight, your maintenance calories have gone down, and in line with that, obviously your metabolism is dropping down a little bit when your body is getting more and more used to being on lower calories. And that's why a plateau is inevitable if you're always sticking to the same kind of level of calories as your body is losing weight. And this is why I always say to people when they are cutting, don't cut the calories drastically straight away. For one thing, it's not sustainable at all. And for another thing, once you've hit a plateau on that low of a calorie deficit, or that high of a calorie deficit, I should say, you've nowhere to really go. You can't really cut the calories anymore, and if you're adding in any steps or cardio on top of that, you're just going to be absolutely fucking bollocks. So as I was saying, that's why I always say you should start small with a deficit and then make it bigger over time once you do hit a plateau. Now, when you are hitting a plateau of fat loss, a lot of people get overly emotionally attached to the scales, like you can see I have written here. Just be logical about the situation. If you have hit a bit of a plateau in terms of fat loss, there's always going to be a logical way you can think about doing things, where you can increase that calorie deficit that you're in and your weight will start to come off again if you're just patient with it. So this logical adjustment process I'm talking about when it comes to hitting a fat loss plateau, you can cut your calories down by a little bit more in terms of what you're eating. You can try and bump your steps up, or you can increase the cardio that you're doing. All of which, as I said, are methods of just creating a bigger calorie deficit. So none of these are inherently even necessary for you to be in a calorie deficit, but the more of them you're trying to implement, the easier it's going to be to create that calorie deficit for yourself so you are losing weight. Switching tone then to if you're hitting a plateau in terms of your strength gain, so maybe your goal is to gain muscle. Obviously, you're trying to focus on progression within your training, so progressive overload, trying to get stronger over time in order to drive that muscle growth. When you're first starting resistance training in the gym, your strength gain is going to be very quick and everything is going to seem like it's great. But after a while of doing the same thing, it is going to slow down considerably, and that's where I guess you could say you've hit a plateau in terms of your strength gain. And this is where you have to start switching things up. So a couple of the things you could do, you could implement some drop sets. So that would be maybe on your last set. So let's take a leg extension as an example. You're doing 3 sets of say 10 reps. After your last set is complete, drop the weight, maybe half it, or go to 3/4 of the weight you're originally doing and rep out another 10. So a drop set is always a good intensity technique to add in that little bit more volume without necessarily have to go on heavier with the weight, or even add on an extra set. You're just going straight into it, keeping that intensity high. You could always eat more calories, so if you're on the skinnier side and really trying to bulk up, this could be a good option for you. Eating more calories, more food is obviously going to give your body that little bit more energy in order to be able to lift that little bit more in the gym when you are hitting a bit of a plateau in terms of your strength. You could increase the volume of your workout. So what I really mean by that is maybe adding in some extra sets as opposed to reps, because if you're hitting a bit of a strength plateau, it's going to be unlikely you can do more reps of the same weight. So increase the volume that little bit more. As I said, what I mean by that is just adding in an extra set and maybe trying to replicate the same intensity, so the same weight times the same reps for that extra set as well. So you're not technically lifting more, but you're doing more volume with that extra set. That can help you break through the plateau. And the last thing I have written here, and is one that I'd always suggest to people after about 6 or 8 weeks of following the same split. It's completely normal, you're going to hit a plateau. Always happens to me. So if I'm following the same split for anywhere over 6 to 8 weeks at a time, my strength is really going to start hitting a bit of a plateau. So take bench press as an example. If I haven't done it in a while and I start bringing it back in again, my strength will be going up and up on it pretty much for the first 3-4 weeks of doing it. Starts to taper off that little bit then, and then around that 6, 7, 8 week mark, it really starts to slow down. And I'm finding it really tough even to get an extra rep in even one of the sets. As an experienced lifter myself, I think that's time when it's best to change up the workouts. Because when you're just a beginner, any of these first 3 will work like a tree for you. But after a while, when you have that real experience of training, you'll need to start changing up your split, I reckon, every 6 or 8 weeks. As I was also saying in the intro, your muscles react to a stimulus very quickly. So if you're always doing the same thing, eventually your muscles are going to adapt to that, and then on top of that, there's no reason for them to grow anymore once they've already adapted to the stimulus or the stress they are placing them under. So in conclusion then, something that initially brings you results definitely isn't going to bring you results forever. To go from 0 to 1 is easier, I should say, than going from 9 to 10. The newbie gains when you first start out in the gym, they're absolutely great, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to last forever and they're going to taper off down the line. And that's where you have to be that little bit more disciplined and locked in to continue to see them results beyond that stage. And you should always be looking for areas to improve upon to keep seeing the results. All them little 1% gains really matter. I hope that video today was helpful for you guys. As always, if you liked the video, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next one.